part 3 of the inventory system from scratch tutorial. So in the last part, we made it so that you had items, slots had data, and you could insert a random item. This one, we're going to make it so that you can move items around, so I can move this battery in the top left and swap them. I'm also going to make so you can select them, and then you can use them, and each item will have a different use. Basically just giving functionality to the inventory. So first, if we go into our code, we're going to make it so that we can select slots. But to do that, we're going to go below this code where we made it so items could be inserted, and we're going to add a function called onSlotPressed, which is going to be called below by the inventory slot widget. It's going to basically call this function when it's been pressed, and it's going to tell the menu that certain slot index has been pressed. So when that's pressed, we're going to try and get the slot widget. So we're going to use that array we made previously, try and get the slot index, then we're going to throw an error because that slot index should exist, like that slot widget should exist because we're calling this from that slot widget. Valid slot. Then we're just going to put in the slot index. Yeah, so we'll just put a little message if it does somehow error. Then we're going to make a variable that is going to contain the currently selected slot index, because we're going to need to store yeah, whatever's currently selected so that we know what slots to swap around. It's going to be an optional integer because you might not have slots selected at the moment. Yeah, so if we do that, we scroll down, then we're going to set a check here. Check if a slot's already selected, like that. Name that correctly. Yeah, we're going to check if a slot's already selected. Then if a slot is selected, you're going to, we'll leave that for later, and we're going to do an else. Basically, this is a check if there's slot data in the one that's been pressed. If inventory dot get slot data. Basically, if a slot isn't currently selected, then we're going to attempt to select the current slot if that slot has no data in it. So yeah, so we'll just write that only select current only selective slot as data. Yeah, then we're going to need another quick function called set selected slot private text. Yeah, this is basically going to handle updating which slot selected, setting the background color. Yeah. So if we want to select this slot, then we're gonna select it. There we go. Yeah, select press. Should be it. Don't know why it's be optional. So we're gonna make this optional because we want it so you can kind of pass in faults if you just want it to like deselect whatever slot's selected. Yeah. Okay, so the logic up here, so basically if a slot's already selected and we're trying to select a new one, then we want to swap the slots. So we're checking if the selected slot index does not equal the one we're pressing now. Basically, if we're selecting a different slot index, then we're going to want to clear that. Then we want to try and swap those slots. So we'll call this in the inventory. We've not made this function yet, but I'm just going to put it here, and then we'll make it in a second. We're just going to comment that out for now. But yeah, then we're going to actually call faults on this. But we're going to basically clear the currently selected slot, because if we move it, we want to clear our selection. And also this basically, if we don't move it, and because we've clicked the same slot, then it's going to deselect it. So that's how you deselect slots. You just click the same one. So in selected slot, we're going to update the display. We're going to deselect current slot. We're going to check if copy this. We're going to check if there's already. Copy that. Yeah, we're going to check if one's already been, so like we're going to check if we're selecting an actual slot, and if we are, um, slot widget, select a slot index. Oh no, it should be this. This is gonna deselect the current one because we're selecting a new one. So we're gonna get the currently selected slot widget, and we're gonna set selected false. So that's where we could indicate it to go make the function down here on the slot widget. So on the slot widget, all we're gonna do is just gonna copy this. Then we're gonna just call it set selected, and it's gonna take in some logic. It's gonna be true or false. It's just gonna be whether it's selected. Um, then that's comes back to here before where we stored a variable for the slot background widget. So we can just change it now down here. So we're going to do basically just change the color based on whether it's selected. So if it's selected, we're going to change the background color to white. Otherwise, we'll just leave it as black, which is the default. Yeah, I mean, if you change this color here earlier, then I'll just align these two values, make sure they're the same. Yeah, so now basically, I'm going to deselect the current slot when yeah, I'm going to deselect the current slot when we're selecting a new one. We should probably set this to false. We're going to clear the variable, not that variable, this one. We're going to clear the currently selected slot. But yeah, and then we're going to try and select the new slot, which is this variable that's passed in. So we're going to check if a variable has been passed in. So if a new slot has been passed in, then we're going to try and select that. If not, we just don't care because we've already cleared the currently selected slot, which we'll do down. We still need to get the slot widget, this new one. Do that here. We get the slot widget. We basically just copy this. Then we're going to do slot widget. We're going to say the slot widget is now selected. We're going to set the selected slot widget to this new index. But that should be it for this part. We'll add some more logic to this function later. Yeah, for now that should be it. Yeah. So I've just realized that we haven't actually called this onSlot pressed function up here. So all we're going to do is we're going to go down to our inventory slot widget class. We're just going to we're going to get the parent inventory menu. We're going to do onSlot pressed. We're going to pass in our slot index. Yeah. So now if you compile code changes and push, then we'll load into game. The changes should be there. Now that we're in game, if we press I, open our inventory, we're unable to select the empty slots, which is what we want. Insert some items, and you should be able to select them. If you click it twice, it should deselect it. If we click another one, it should still deselect it, but obviously it doesn't move it right now. We'll do that in a second. So if we go back into code, down here, and what we're going to do is we're going to add this movement logic. So back here where we commented this out, I'm going to uncomment this out. Then we're going to go add a function for it within our tutorial inventory. Make this a public one, and we called it try item. So we're going to need two variables. Going to be from slot, then we'll call it to index actually. To index and from index. Basically, the indexes we're trying to move between, which we passed in over here. We passed in the currently selected slot index, then the new slot we've pressed, which is the one we want to move to. Okay. So basically, we're just going to try and swap this data around. So if from slot data equals get slot data from index. So basically, if the from slot has data, which it always should, otherwise there's nothing to move or swap. Then basically we're going to do update slot data, which is the function above. We're going to update the to index. The slot in the so we're going to update the data in the slot we've just pressed with the data in the first slot we pressed. So that should be it for that. But then we're also, before we replace that data, we're going to get the previous data that was in that slot. So optional to slot data equals option. And then we'll copy, we're just going to store a copy of the data that's there before we remove it. It's optional because there might not be data there, but if there is data there, then we're going to swap the data around. So we're going to do if to slot data equals the optional. I'm going to question it. Then we're just going to update. We're going to put that data that we've replaced into the previous slot. So it's basically swapping the data around. And then otherwise we're going to clear. So basically if there's no data to swap, if there's no data to put in the previous slot, then we're just going to clear that previous slot because it still has data that we moved in. So if we just do clear from index. Now if we build and compile and push the loading game, we should be able to swap slots around. So if we press I to open our inventory, insert some random items, then we click them, we should be able to move them. So we can move items to empty slots, and if we click on another item, we should swap it around. Here we go. Obviously can't tell with those ones because they're the same item. Here we go. Yeah, you should be able to and then just keep inserting, keep swapping, whatnot. So that should be that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to make it so that you can use an item you've selected. So when I select it, this use button will appear, and then we'll have some functionality behind it. Cool. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here into our inventory menu, and we're going to make it so that that use button has some functionality. So if we find where it was an action button, so I think it was up here. Use item button, and we're going to actually use that. We're going to subscribe to it. So we've got it enabled default, so we're going to make it so when we press it, we're going to call on use item button pressed. Which for now, we'll just copy this function here. Paste that. Now this isn't going to be usable because we've disabled the button, so you just can't click it. Because we're going to make it so the use button is only clickable when an item's selected. But to do that, we're going to store a variable for the use button, which I'm just going to copy a line here. Yeah, store a variable, make it private, but it's going to be basically the use item button, which we've defined down here. I'm just going to set that variable. The reason it's optional is because we're defining it inside this function, so we don't have the button when we define a variable up here like our other widgets. But yeah, so we basically want to control visibility manually, so we're setting it to false there, so it's not visible. And then what we're going to do is when a slot is selected, which should be down here, set selected slot. Basically, after we've changed what's selected, we're going to check. So we're going to get our use item button. Then we're going to set it. We're going to set the whether it's enabled based on if a slot is selected. So if this equates to true, then the button's going to enable. It should disable it when the slot isn't selected. We don't need to look at that in game yet. We'll just work on the onUse functionality first, which I think makes sense. So for that, we're going to go into our inventory system. This is where we're going to do the logic for using items. We'll just add a thing called use item, and that doesn't return anything and doesn't have transacts. And basically, we're just going to have to pass in a player. So this is the player that's using the item. And then we're going to pass in the slot index of the item they're trying to use. So we'll just call this from within the inventory menu. So we'll call item underscore system dot use item. I'm going to pass in the owner, and we're going to pass in the selected slot index. Which, we'll copy that from there. We'll add an if statement for that. Yeah, it's just going to attempt to use the currently selected item. And the reason we're putting this logic in the item system is to just abstract some of that logic. Might want like an inventory system helper, but yeah, it's just kind of related to these items, so it's just a bit cleaner to put it up there. And all we're going to do is we're going to get find the item that's in that player's inventory at that index. We're going to do player.inventory.get slot data at that slot index. And then all we need to do is just try and get that item. So we'll just copy wherever we did go get an item earlier. Yeah, we'll just copy this line, which is inside set slot data of the widget. We're just going to copy this, which is basically tutorial system.getItem, this function. I'm going to try to get the item for whatever data is in that slot. And then all we need to do is just call a function on the item, which we're going to do. We're not doing that yet. We're going to do tutorial player dot get their inventory again, and then we're going to just clear the data in that slot. So we're going to basically we're going to call the use item function, which we've not done yet, not defined that, and then we're going to remove that item from their inventory. So let's get to work on making it so you can use items. Do that in this is going to be the base item class. So we're going to define a function in it called on item public. Taken the tutorial player, player, and we're just going to leave it empty because this is the base item. It has no use. So what we're going to do is we're going to add child classes, which are going to be the different types of items. So you can have as many types as you want. You could add like a food item, an ammo item. But yeah, this is going to be a heal item. So we're going to add a parameter or a variable for the amount the item should heal. And then we're going to override this on item use function. And all we're going to do is we're just basically going to just heal the player, which we could just get their fort character by doing get fort character. That should just be passing the player. Then might need to. There should be some. This agent or get fort character. Okay. So we're going to do the other way around. So it should be that. There we go. Player get fort character, and then there's going to be an error because it's not included something. So we'll put that there. Yeah, and then all we need to do is just call fort character dot heal. Plug in that heal amount variable there. So what we can now do down here is where we added this to do. We can just call item dot on item use, and then all we need to do is just pass in the player. And this will basically, when they press use item in the menu, it will call this function based on the item type. Right now you see we've got all our items defined as the base class, so it will run nothing, there's no function. So we need to define a heal item. So if we change here on Apple, we're going to change it to a heal item, and then we're going to change the heal, we're going to specify the heal amount as, we're just going to make it like 10, so it heals 10. Yeah, so we can actually go test this in game, hopefully. We might need, I guess we won't notice the changes, so I think we're going to add a few more items. We're going to add one that damages the player. We duplicate this, and we'll just call it damage. Damage, damage amount. It should be quite quick, just damage amount. Yeah, you can just quickly add more whatever item types you want. And then I'm going to actually make this a new item, and I'm going to call it skull. That sounds like something that is damaging. I've actually also added a new icon already, so we're going to use this icon. Yeah, so you can just add as many items as you want and add different functionality. You just run whatever functions you want to, and obviously we need to define the amount of damage it's going to do, which is going to be 15. And then I think we'll just add another item that's going to give shield to the player, just to show that you can just add whatever items you want. Yeah, you can just add, and we can add multiple of these, so we can add like a second apple, which heals more health. You can add multiple, so like an item type can be used by multiple items. Basically, the item type just defines what the item's going to do. So I'm going to do set shield. Actually, I think we're going to need to do get shield plus the shield amount. Yeah, this item type is just going to give the player some shield. We're going to specify the shield amount here. We'll make it like 25. Okay. So yeah, when you click using these items, it should just give you some shield, give you some health. This one should damage you, which probably isn't that usable because I don't know why you would want to damage yourself. But yeah, so if we go back here and if we push changes, load it into game, if we just quickly open our inventory, we can add some items. So the use button isn't enabled. If you click an item, it should be enabled, and then enable and disable based on what we've got selected. I've got my health bar here. If I click an item and click use, then it should be used, and we should take some damage. I could just keep using these. You'll notice it doesn't deselect the slot. We'll fix that in a second. Then if I select some apples, should be able to, we should see our health go up. Then if I select a battery, use that, the item vanishes. Obviously get some shields, and you can just keep doing that. Yeah, you just add as many item types as you want. Yeah, we'll quickly fix this slot not deselecting. So if we go in here, we'll just go to the inventory menu, and we'll make it so that the set selected slot, set selected slot, where was that? There we go. We're basically just going to deselect the current slot whenever our data is changed. So it should be update slot data. Basically, if the currently selected slot data is cleared, then we're going to deselect it. So we'll just add a little comment. So we're going to do if inside. Yeah, we're going to set selected slot false. We'll just clear the currently selected one. We're going to get that. We're going to say if optional selected slot equals the slot index, and we're going to clear the slot. Actually, we're only going to clear it if there's no slot data. So basically, if this slot is now empty, then we're going to clear the selection, which should clear it whenever whenever you use an item. So we'll push changes and have a look. Now that we're back in our inventory, if we use an item, you should see that it's deselected. So you just use, select a new one, keep using them. You'll see our health bar's not shown up. That seems to be a bit of a bug, but if you just end game and start game, it should make your health bar appear. Not sure why that is. Yeah, we could just use a bunch. But yeah, feel free to add your own items, add more item types, just experiment. And in future parts, which will be released a little bit after this, we're going to make it so this inventory saves, because right now if you end the game and start the game, your data isn't saved. This inventory is just temporary. And we might also add some additional things such as item stacks. So you can have like multiple apples in one slot, for example. Yeah, we'll just extend this a little bit. Thanks for watching. Make sure to join the Discord if you need any help. Subscribe. Thank you.